Hey friends, it's Kelly Thorngore, and I am so happy to be with you today. We are going through a 40-day prayer challenge using Draw the Circle by Mark Batterson, and it has just been so incredible. Today we are on day 18, Keep Circling, which is really don't quit. Don't give up before you realize the miracle. Don't stop. How many of you are feeling like you want to stop right now? Anybody feeling that way? Like it just seems too big. It seems so impossible. There are so many amazing nuggets. Hey, Becky, so glad you are able to join us live again today. Good morning, Kim, Nikki. All right. Oh my goodness. Okay, so the opening story that he shares, which by the way, I will just say it's really important that let me think about how to say this, that we hear stories of God's faithfulness. And this is why it's so important that you share your stories of God's faithfulness. Because if God's done it before, He can do it again. And so when you hear a story of how God has shown up in a situation or in a person's life, you need to read that or listen to that and believe. Let it build your belief that if God did it before, He can do it again. And so this is why it's so important, one, that we're sharing our stories. First of all, we want God to get the glory, but two, it helps to build the faith of other believers. So don't ever stop sharing your stories of God's faithfulness. Okay, that was a little tangent. This one's probably going to be long today because there's a lot here. Okay, so he opens with the story of Tony. And Tony comes to Capitol Hill and he is on a mission. He wants to get an amendment to the communications bill. Super noble. If you read this story, you know, like this needs to happen. And so he needs to go to every office of every congressperson to persuade his case. And if you saw, I don't want to read you the whole thing because, you know, there's so much in here today that I've got to share with you. But one of the things that I think is so interesting is that he's about halfway through and he is told that there is no way that the congressional committee will reopen the bill to include his amendment. Because if he opens it, he has to open it to everyone's amendments. If you know anything about politics, like they don't want that to happen. Like they want it sealed tight. Tony walked out of the 220th congressional office. So he'd been to 220 offices, depressed and defeated. He was ready to throw in the towel and give up the fight, but he had a burning bush moment. My friends, this is our burning bush moment. In the same way it was for Tony, it is a burning bush moment for you. Because listen carefully. So he goes, he sits down, he's like defeated. I mean, like, okay, it's impossible. They're saying it's impossible. It's not going to happen. Do you have a dream that you know God's put on your heart, a deep longing, a passion, but right now it feels impossible? Okay, this is your moment. This is your word from God. So he's sitting there and he says to himself, stop wasting your time and go home. Or maybe you're telling yourself, I should stop wasting my time because it's never happened before. I should stop wasting my time because I don't see God doing anything yet. I should stop wasting my time and quit. Anybody else feel that way or have ever felt that way? Yeah. Okay, I love this because he hears God say, who is doing this? You or me? And my friends, the same is true with your dreams. Is it God's dream? Because if it's God's dream that He's put in your heart, It's going to happen. Like, there's no doubt about it. It's going to happen. It might just happen in a different time frame than you thought. It might look differently than you thought, but it's going to happen. And so we just have to do what God chose us to do. And so I love, he said, instantly, I was filled with more excitement than when I first began. And at each of the following 215 offices, my presentations were given with renewed faith. Okay, do not miss this. Because one, there's the God moment of like God saying, okay, like who's doing this? You or me? But there's something also really powerful about this story that I don't want you to miss. He had an assignment. He had an assignment. And his assignment was to go plead his case. Go say why this was so important. And in order to do that, he had to go to 435 offices. Okay, do you know how much work that is? I mean, that's like not just some easy thing. But he had this assignment that he had to go to those places. And what if he had quit? If he had quit, we would not see what we see now. The fact that his case was so important because he wanted the pornography channels, whatever you call that. I can't think of the name of it. Decoded, whatever. You know what I mean. Scrambled. That's the word. Scrambled. And so that is a reality now. And my kids aren't being exposed to pornography on TV because this man's faithfulness. You guys, this is huge. And it's huge for you because God has given you an assignment. He has shown you some specific things that you need to do. And maybe you're feeling defeated. Maybe you are feeling exhausted. And you just don't want to do it. You just don't want to keep going. But you are going to forfeit the miracle that God has for you if you stop. So you got to keep circling. You got to keep praying. You got to keep doing the things that God has shown you to do. Can you tell I'm a little fired up today? I hope I'm not scared of you. Okay. I mean, there's so many other nuggets. Yes, Joan, this is absolutely one of my favorites. There's so many things in it. Okay. So his amendment seemed like a lost cause. And listen to this. He said, I'm not exaggerating when I tell you, as my leg crossed the threshold, as I exited the 435th office, the last one, my pager went off. Chairman Dingle has just agreed to allow my amendment to be added to the telecommunications bill. You guys, something that seemed impossible was done. But he didn't stop. He didn't stop praying. He didn't stop showing up. He didn't stop doing the thing. This is important. Yes, Joan, he has given you a special assignment. A special assignment. Every single one of you. All right, listen to this. Sometimes God shows up. Sometimes God shows off. God's timing is impeccable, isn't it? He's never late. He's never early. He's always right on time. But we got to keep doing our part. We got to keep doing the thing he's shown us to do. And we got to do it faithfully. We got to do it as if the miracle has already happened. I don't believe in coincidences, he says. I believe in providence. I believe there's a God in heaven who directs our steps, who prepares good works in advance, who causes all things to work together for good, who fights our battles for us. So in today's description, after the video, I put two worship songs that I've been listening to all morning. One is Never Lost. He's never lost a battle. He's fighting the battle for you. This isn't yours. This is his. And then the other one is surrounded. I love that song. That we fight our battles in prayer. We fight our battles in praising God. So go listen to those worship songs. Put them on repeat for this weekend. Blast them up. You sing, you declare God's victory over whatever it is that you're praying for. He says, keep asking, keep seeking, keep knocking. We can't quit. Okay, but there's so many more nuggets today. Sometimes God will push us to the absolute limits. Do you feel pushed to your absolute limits? The limits of our faith, of our patience, of our gifts. This is how God stretches our faith and builds our character. My friend, when you feel like you're at the end of your rope, when you feel like you have nothing left to give, when you feel like it's absolutely impossible, I think sometimes that's where God wants us. Just like the story of Tony. God wanted him at the place of feeling like it was impossible. It wasn't going to happen. There's no way. So that God could get the glory. You know what? That story wouldn't have been in this book had he quit. That story would not have been in this book and a story that I'm telling to you had he not taken on the mission to begin with, or had he quit, or had it looked impossible. And the same is true in your life. You are facing some things that look and feel impossible. And yet God has it that way. And he has you at the end of your rope so that you can know when it happens, it's all God. God gets the glory for it. And then we tell the stories and it inspires the faith of other people. And they get to be equipped for their next assignment. God stretches our faith and he builds our character. Sometimes that dream and the waiting and the longing and the preparation, it's not even about us. It's about God getting the glory. It's about the stories that are going to be inspired. Okay, this next part makes me a little weepy, so I'm going to try not to cry, but I've been really weepy as I've been going through it. But it's what if? What if he stopped? What if the Israelites stopped circling Jericho on day 6? For that matter, what if Elijah had quit praying for rain at his 6th request? Or what if Naaman had only dipped in the river 6 times? And while we're on the subject, what if Tony had quit his door-to-door campaign after the 220th office? The answer is obvious. The miracle would have been forfeited before it happened. Before it happened. My friends, I don't want you to forfeit the miracle, the dream that God has put on your heart. I want you to have the tenacity and the perseverance to keep working, to keep fighting, to keep going after and doing the thing God's called you to do. Because it matters. That thing you're praying for, it matters. And this is the part that gets me. He talks about when he was a pastor and how they had 25 people in their church. And it would have been easier to just quit. It would have been easier to just help those people find another church that was awesome. And he said, listen to this, but I was thinking in present tense terms. Think about this. Think about your prayers. Are you praying in present tense terms? As in, like, God, do it right now, because that's all I can see is these 25 people who are impacted. Okay, but listen. When you quit circling, you don't just compromise the present. Every promise, every miracle, every blessing in your future is also forfeited. And I would also say, those of you who have been given an assignment, maybe it's through a business or through a ministry or through parenting, if you give up and you quit, you're also going to forfeit all the lives that would have been impacted had you stuck with it, had you kept circling, had you not stopped praying and believing. And so we don't only forfeit the miracles for us, but we can forfeit the miracles for other people because we weren't obedient. Yeah, Paulette, that's powerful. And it is big. So there is so much in here, but I can tell you, a few years ago, when I decided to transition my business and to incorporate Plexus into my business, I got a lot of pushback. Some super hurtful words of people attacking my character. And it crushed me to the core. And I had to spend a lot of time with God because I knew that God had put this in my path as an avenue to help women get healthy. I knew that God had put this in my path as an avenue to help women break financial bondage. I knew that God had put this on my path for a purpose. And I'll tell you, there were days I wanted to quit. There were days that it was so hard. In fact, there was one day I was crying so hard. Sobbing. And my little girl, she was 5 at the time. She grabbed my cheeks and she said, Mommy, you can do hard things. Just like you show us to do hard things. And she said, I don't know why those people are mean to you, but God is going to do something. She's 5. And oh my word, it was such a powerful moment in my life. Because I can tell you now, I was just talking to a friend who her health has been redeemed. And right now she's getting financial blessings that she desperately needed for her family. And she said, this has changed my life. You guys, she just joined me. But what if I had quit 3 years ago? What if I had decided it was too hard? And so I share that to say, there are moments that we face hard stuff. And we want to quit, and it would be way easier to quit than to keep going. But I can tell you, as someone who has lived this, there are people waiting. There are people who need what you have and the gifts and the talents that God has given you. And I never dreamed that God would call me to a network marketing company as a ministry tool and for it to be a vehicle to change the lives of thousands of people. But He did, and I'm doing it. And I'm doing it faithfully and obediently, and I'm watching lives be changed. So that may not be what God's called you to, but whatever He's called you to, you got to do it. Because there are people who need you to step into all the things He has for you. And so I just want you to know that it matters. It matters. All right, this one was way long. Go read that devotional like numerous times. Listen to those worship songs. Let it fire you up. If you're feeling like quitting, if you're feeling like giving up on your dream, it's so important. All right, have an awesome day. I'll see you tomorrow.